Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday evening class. Special welcome to the people on Instagram and YouTube and the people who will be finding us in the weeks to come. And then those of you on the Zoom call who I can observe. I think that tonight is exactly a year that we've been doing our live broadcasts on Instagram. We were looking at the documents earlier today. And now we're meeting again on YouTube each week, Zoom and Facebook. So it gets better and better, and we're getting better at it. I'm seeing some smiling and chewing faces, eating snacks with us. It's really good. And we really are looking to have those of you who are in New York to come visit us again. It's time for us to step up and get involved and get out of inertia, those of you who are still in inertia. Tonight, we're going to be talking about change and changing a little bit, learning to love ourselves through change. I know some of you, many of you have been doing work on yourselves. And for those of you who have been committed to this process, we're going to postulate and say that change can be wonderful. It's not wonderful for everybody, but it can be wonderful. And it can be difficult also, and we know this. So I'll throw out a few questions for you to ponder. Are you worried, any of you, about anything that's going on in your life? You can think about that for a second. Were you concerned about something that's going on with your family, your parents, maybe a significant other? And I'll ask the question of people, in the room and out of the room, is there something bothering you? Are you worried about something? And if I throw that question out, most people, as they think about their relationships and their health, and most people are worried about something. The first thing to know is it's somewhat normal to be concerned about things that are happening in your world. You'd probably be abnormal if you didn't have some type of concern. Most people have been programmed to be afraid of a lot of things. What is it for you as you think about it? Because we have lots of tools for helping people get through these types of times. And we have and things that we'll teach you in our classes. Maybe this week, some of you are worried about financing. I was reading the newspaper recently. The cost of everything seems to be rising and rising. If you listen to the news right now, it's a big concern for many people. Some of the people I've been talking to lately have been dealing with health challenges, several. I've gone through health challenges myself. Are you worried about your health or perhaps somebody else's health? The thing that we pay attention to here Thursdays in particular, but all the time, is our habituated thought, our thinking. If we're habitually going there towards worry, or if we go towards what's wrong, or what's wrong with life, if you're doing that, and if you're going towards worry habitually, then you're going to be heading towards trouble. I mean, that's simply the law of life. So we want to deal with life on life's terms, of course, but we want to pay attention if we are embodying a lot of unnecessary worry. So this is a theme for healing yourself. People worry about all kinds of things. Their weight, I can relate, their health, their blood pressure. They worry about their business, or maybe post-COVID, their lack of business. They worry about their girlfriends, their boyfriends. They're worrying about so many things and wondering about many things. When I first put this talk together, ideas of it, we were going through COVID. Now this is post-COVID, right? And some of us have adapted and learned how to thrive, and many of us are still trying to figure it out. Like, who am I going to be now that COVID is over? What am I going to do? My way of living has changed. The place I'm living has changed. Everything has changed. If you looked at New York right now, you'd say New York has changed. In this very building, 7 businesses are gone. that used to thrive here. 7 businesses, and this is just one little building in New York City. So things are different. I've seen people quit jobs, and I've seen people just quit. I have a reverend friend who just pretty much is isolated for the past 2 years, and I don't think the person's been out of her house more than half a dozen times. And I wonder, who's going to thrive and who's going to make it. Of course, that's not my business, but it does make you wonder. And sadly, I've spoken to a few who feel it's too late for them. I know a couple people in their 60s and 70s, even one that's younger, who have concluded that they're too old and it's too late. I can think of one person who's in his 50s and he's just decided he's retired. So, people carry on a lot of conversations within themselves. And these are the kind of things that ministers and practitioners listen to all the time. And how do I tell them? How do, my ministers tell them that all this stuff is a lie, the stuff that they're entertaining? I mean, here it is. It's true for them, of course, but it's still, in truth, it's a lie. People are supplied and supported. The universe supports, responds, but there's consciousness, right? And so when you say it's over, I promise you, it is over. And many people, have a lot of ideas about things, and that's one of the reasons you come here each week, because we'll teach you ways to neutralize the negative and to embrace the positive, and maybe even help you come figure out who you came to this planet to become. Because if you're habituating and hanging on to a lot of stuff, it might be very true for you as you hang on to it. And I will listen, and Reverend Judith and Reverend Joyce and Reverend Robert will listen with compassion to you, even though you're telling us a big fib sometimes. I used to have a minister, Elijah, practitioner in Florida, and I always had people talk to Elijah because Elijah listened to the stuff for a while, right? And then he'd say, and then there is God, and he'd go right into treatment because, we're not here to support the story. We're here to support the truth. And that's the best way we can support you, which is supporting the higher idea of you as a connected being, as a being of light and wonder. When people are caught up into worry and doomsday thinking and, all the negativity, they develop feelings, right? A concept I learned in 1980 through a recovery program, which has informed me well over the years, is that feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts. And my feelings will follow my thoughts. So if I've got a bunch of negative thinking and I'm perpetually pessimistic, I'm not going to be feeling good. So I always had that backwards. I could be caught up in feelings and stay there. So I remember having a sponsor type person in 1980 who said, you need to get up and move. I'll listen to this negative thinking for about 10 more minutes, but you need to get up and start moving. Change your thinking and you'll begin to change your life. Take some steps. We have a saying in religious science, which is, as we do affirmative prayer, treat, and then move your feet. Just don't sit around there waiting on the Lord. There's action that's involved because we get stuck. You remember that old song, we're stuck on a feeling? Yeah, so people get caught up in their habituated thoughts and they're living out the same thoughts. This is the thing, we got these great minds, we use such a small portion of our minds, right? So we have these thoughts that it's like they're on a loop over and over and over again. You think of this one person, you automatically go to your resentment. You think of this one person, you automatically. So it's tough for you to have a new moment with people because Many of us are on a perpetual loop when it comes to some people, some situations, and you're incapable of being in the present so you could reconsider everything. We live out that same song. Here's an old saying: same song, different verse, a little bit louder and now a little bit worse. So these things, they get louder and louder until eventually you learn the lesson. Anything that's happening in your life is happening for you, by the way. So if you find that there's a theme that's being repeated, try to get it this time around. Because I promise you, if you don't get the lesson this time around, the universe is so wonderful, it'll come back and present it to you in a larger way. We used to kid about it when we were new in metaphysics. They say, I wish I could learn by the little nudge rather than the big whoop or the cosmic 2x4, because the universe is designed for our success. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, the dice of God are always loaded. So you're going to get that lesson, right? You don't really even have to worry about it if you get it this time. But, I know those of you on the call really are learning to work with the law, and you want to have things move, and you want to have things move quickly, and they can. Change doesn't have to take 1,000 years, and there can be a quickening for you. It's possible for you to have, a much to live in a more transcendent way, to have the law of mind work to your advantage. But you have to be able to, slow yourself down a little bit, take a pause and start thinking differently. But going on with what I was saying before, there's a lot of people right now, I've heard from a bunch recent months, that feel pretty helpless. They're worried about their future. They don't think they're going to get where they wanted to go. There seems to be an inertia with some people. And I would say, with my little bit of clinical therapeutic background, that there's some level of depression in a whole bunch of people. And a lot of it's based upon a lie, so the things that they're all hung up on really are not truths. There's an underlying thing. I'll go right back to Louise, which is, I don't matter. I don't count. What I'm doing is not important. I'm not good enough. My life doesn't matter. The people that I loved are gone, and, they find themselves, a little bit older and trying to figure out where they are and how they can, if they can get back into the game. So it's easy to see how it happens. The world gets there, and, we are so lucky in this religious science teaching, because we will give you the tools that you don't have to go to those dark places anymore. It's totally unnecessary from my vantage point. But then the other side of the coin, you could be sitting in this room and, you're stewing on this, and you're going to leave here tonight. You're going to hang on to the same stuff you've hung on to, and you're going to create the same stuff you've been creating. So Ernest Holmes said there's power for good in the universe greater than you, and you can use it, and you can. So I'm grateful for those of you who have the persistence and resilience to keep showing up. Because if you keep staying plugged into the conversation, you're going to realize more and more that you'll say, I am cause to my own experience. Damn it and darn it, I am cause to my own experience. Because wherever and however you're pointing the finger at anyone else, you're missing the point. This teaching isn't about saving or saviors. There's nobody outside yourself ever that's going to save you. Okay? That's depressing, or it was when I first heard it. But the good news is that, so nobody's going to fix me. Okay, we get that finally. We're adults. But the good news is that change is possible, and we can evolve, we can grow, and we can grow quickly. And we can develop the consciousness to understand that all events, circumstances, and happenings are helpful. So you live in a world where you move, live, and you have your being in this unified consciousness. Call it whatever you want to. You live, move, and have your essence in it, your being in it, and it responds to you. Every thought you think is creating life. So imagine that genie in the sky. Your wish is my command. Well, that's the deal, you know. If you keep thinking life is hard and it's too late for you, then that's going to be really what will play out. But if you're determined, absolutely determined to thrive, if you're determined to be a lifter no matter what, if you're determined to tell yourself the positive message and to move your feet and just get out of that inertia. I mean, the whole universe will support every single effort you make in that area. But you do have free will, and it is entirely up to you. So I can go over the corner and sit next to that guy, and I can talk about ain't it awful, and we can do it, and we'll agree with each other. Emma Curtis Hopkins, or one of the old timers, used to call that the counsel of the wicked. No, I think it was her. It doesn't matter who said it. It's still the counsel of the wicked. If I go and sit, we talk like, oh, this is, we do all the complaining. Tell me if there's anything enlightened about that. Where do you suppose to go? Where do you think you're going to take yourself with any of that? So we're talking about consciousness and the places we go in consciousness. I'm going to quote a few people tonight. We'll go for some younger ones, different ones. I've used her before once. I'm going to quote Madonna. Anybody hear of her? She's the person who became a star who couldn't sing very well. Madonna said, no matter who you are, no matter what you did, no matter where you came from, you can always change and become a better version of yourself. Well said, Madonna. She said you must embrace change. I've talked to you in this center before about the human knowledge curve. I've spoken of it in classes. The idea is, in the theory, is all of human knowledge doubles. It used to be every 7 years, 10 years. Now it's every other day, every single day. It used to be it took 100 years for human knowledge to double. Now they think every 2 days. The sum total of human knowledge doubles. Now that's amazing. But the thing is about that is it still doesn't speak about consciousness rising. What we're teaching here and what we've taught here was known during the 1800s. It was known during the time of Ralph Waldo Emerson. They used to say of Ralph Waldo Emerson, a few from every age will understand the consciousness that was in Ralph Waldo Emerson. Our teaching is that teaching. Our teaching is that consciousness. It's a practice. It's a way of life. It's the idea that you live in a unified energy, a unitary field, as Deepak Chopra would say, that's responsive to you. And that all of life moves forward by means of our own consciousness. I mean, we're all connected and we're all moving forward together. Each of us are individualizations of this divine stuff, and the whole universe moves forward by means of us. So it's a waste of time talking about other people and what they're doing, because we have enough wisdom from these classes to know that everyone is doing the best they can with the information that they have. So you look at people, they're doing all kinds of things that you might deem wrong or crazy, and the place you want to get yourself to there is realizing that human being is doing the best they can, and hold them harmless and just keep moving on for yourself. All healing, Louise Hay so beautifully said, is self-healing. So the human knowledge may be doubling every day, but the consciousness and the awareness that we're talking about isn't necessarily. I mean, it's far more than what it was during the time of Emerson. But the masses do not know what you have. Bill Tolliver used to say, I won't say it, I'll quote him, I'll get it in that way. Bill Tolliver used to say, the masses are asses. And so, I won't say that. But what he was trying to say is that humankind, we love them all from every corner of the world. They're all doing the best they can with what they got, okay? Everyone on this call could feel so fortunate and lucky to know what you know, to know that the best kept secret of the world, that Christ, that God in you, that you can connect with, that can create anything. You have been given a great gift if you have the gift of this teaching. You have the ability to step out of fear and out of the story, all the stories. So you can step out of the racket. The racket is the garbage that lives inside your head that says, I'm not okay. And whoever is caught up in what's perpetually wrong, you get to be the cheerleader. You get to be the person that, as the great, which one of these philosophers was it? Pascal, the mathematician philosopher, he said, bet on God. It's a safer way to live. You get to be the person who lives from that place where you keep seeing the good, keep practicing, having the knowledge and the knowing that God is here. There's a presence and a power here in this encounter and every encounter. If you're able to practice this teaching and know that there's power available to you, and if you're able to use it this way, that lifts you above the masses, and that lifts you above the world that acts and reacts, because you will not be taking anything personally. You're going to be a person that's going to understand, okay, this is happening, this is playing out, people are doing the best they can, and what does that have to do with me? I remember from a very gifted therapist many years ago, Joyce would say, whose problem is this? As she gave me that card every week for a long time. I paid a lot of money to learn that lesson. Whose problem is it? So when you're thinking about your challenges day by day and week by week, you can ask yourself some of those questions. Whose problem is this? Because I was finding that a lot of the problems that were going on in the world, I were taking on and making my own. And what we teach you here very clearly is that we're living in the perfect place, perfect time, and all of the time. And as Louise so beautifully said, all is well. So we learn to practice the presence. I'm going to borrow from another teaching, which I love this saying, and it came from, well, it doesn't matter where it came from. It's a song, and it's the peace of God is my one goal, my purpose, my function, and my life. So we're here as metaphysical students, knowing that we live, move, and have our being in divine substance. And we align ourselves with the knowledge of this oneness of spirit. And we understand that having this peace, it's our goal, it's our function, it's our life. When we come from that unified place, we will be embracing wholeness and peace and prosperity and abundance. We're looking away from circumstances. Part of the thrust of religious science is always to be looking to see that we're supplied and supported. And it's more than just looking, it's understanding and realizing that we're supplied and supported. As we're able to do that, we heal our lives, and we open up avenues in consciousness so we can receive better relationships, more abundance, more peace, more health, more wholeness. It's just a natural reflection of self-knowledge. So our ability to know whether we're going to be successful in all of that, in all these areas in our life, is going to be based upon our self-knowledge and how well we love ourselves, and whether we realize that we're one with life. My notes for today's class are that we need to develop a certain flexibility, and that ability, we need to be okay when things aren't working out the way we want them to. Our flexibility and our willingness to change when things aren't working out. I go immediately to the idea that I am supplied and supported. And to the extent I'm able to do that, if I have that kind of flexibility, that's a great indicator of the success I'm going to have. When I was younger, I heard an expression, take a pause. I heard the expression, take the pause that refreshes. And I was thinking, when I was preparing the lesson, where did that phrase come from? And I looked it up when I was making my notes, and it was actually from Coca-Cola 80 years ago. And Coca-Cola was way ahead of their time with that suggestion. And they're suggesting that everybody ought to take a pause and a timeout. And I would say we ought to take a pause and a timeout to do our affirmations so we can become centered in the truth of who we are. I would suggest, the first step of treatment is the recognition that there is one power, and that power is in me, operating through me right now. And I'd like you guys to start thinking that way. I recognize and I know that there's a presence and there's a power, and that power is in me right now. And meditate more on that, because if you really understand that you live and move and have your being in this substance that responds to you, you'll learn to live the affirmative way of life that we teach here. And it's really a smart thing to do. So Coca-Cola had it right. In the 2020s, pause has a much different word. We're pausing all over the place. We've been put on pause for a couple years, and it's time for us to get back in business. Maybe the one thing we can learn to pause is, let's start to pause the dialogue and the racket that lives within us. The term racket I learned from Landmark Education, and I've had experience with it. The racket is the inner dialogue that goes on within you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You wake up in the middle of the night, you're having a dream, it's still the racket. The racket is going on. And the racket oftentimes says something's wrong or something's wrong with you. And it's in our dreams, it's everywhere. We want to deal with that racket and those old loops. The racket represents all of the agreements. Remember the 4 agreements I taught about a few weeks ago? The agreements that you've made with everybody in the world since the time you were born. We need to examine those agreements, because many of those agreements are all about self-sabotage and you trying to live up to impossible standards that were passed on to you. So all of these things are potentially self-defeating. So maybe we need to take a pause on some of that. Join in our courses each week so we can identify the things that we say to ourselves that are not true. We have a lot of habitual things that are old agreements that it would benefit us to take a second look at. Once we see that we're doing it and we develop the courage to change and stop the negative chatter, what a difference that pause can and will do for you simply by slowing down that chatter. As I said before, we self-sabotage with self-righteousness. God, I've known some ministers like that. We self-sabotage with self-righteousness. We become incapable then of being the cheerleaders when we are in judgment of everything and everyone. We become incapable of compassion when we're in that place of judgment. So this pause can restore us to right thinking as we center ourselves in the truth of knowing that we're one with God, one with Source. So let's take that pause. If you can just take a breath and slow yourself down and do that. I've been in 12-step programs, incidentally, for 41 years now. And they used to say to me from 1980, think the situation through. So here's another suggestion for anyone tonight that's going through a tough thing. You have a need to respond, react, and fight with yourself or others. Think the situation through. As you're inclined to make a retaliatory statement toward anyone or beat yourself up, think the situation through. Think before you take the next step, before you do the next thing. Another slogan, which I'm sure most of you have heard, suggestion is, because you have a great gift, you have a mind, right? So start using it. Act. Don't react so much. Take that pause and act rather than react. Sometimes the best thing to do is just take the pause think, and you probably won't say anything. See, it's very easy to react to everything and be reactive. Most of the entire world reacts. And most of the entire world acts that way. It's not terribly intelligent. It's not terribly enlightened. And if you're always in reactivity, it won't take you where you want to go. So tonight, one of your superpowers and abilities for change will be the ability to pause. Take the pause that will refresh and slow yourself down so you can let yourself be informed by spirit. From my 12-step background, it says this type of pausing, this type of surrendering can restore us to right thinking and sanity and allow us to thrive. And I never liked the suggestion that I wasn't, that my thinking wasn't right or that I needed to be restored. But the fact of the matter is, if I look back at that time of my life, many of the decisions were highly questionable, somewhat crazy. So taking that pause that can allow us to connect with the truth of who we are, is really an intelligent thing to do. If you slow down and you notice you're moving too fast, you can recollect yourself and you can realize the truth of you, that you are as God created you, as they say, in the light and the love and the glory. And you can awaken to the truth of who you are. So there's another old expression. I'm full of old expressions tonight. I'll probably end about here. And I love this one is, I'm only responsible for the second thought. So the first thought that can come in, it comes in. I'm only responsible for the second one. It's like what I do with it. Because the first thought could be me wanting to retaliate or be angry for something. I'm only responsible for the second thought. I don't want to live my life in reaction. I don't know about the rest of you. That's the way most people live. They're not living consciously because they're bringing all their prejudices into all their interactions, and they don't see people in a new moment. And that's what's possible here. Sometimes it seems like the world has gone crazy. Just think of the past year or two. It doesn't need to be that way for you. Just because they're all doing it, it doesn't mean you have to do it or be that person. You and I can be a source of calm and peace in the middle of any storm. If you're ready to embrace a change, a real change, you have powers within you that will attract great good. You can learn how to use them here. Take a deep breath and pause and tell yourself, as Louise Hay so beautifully said all those years ago, all is well.